Africa, Africa, oh Africa, 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 you've been sleeping too long. It's time for you to wake up. Africa, 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 time for you to wake up. Africa, AfRAka, Africa, 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 you've been sleeping too late. Africa, 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 it's time for you to wake up. Yes, I'm sure you do hear what I said. I'm sure you do appreciate what I sang as well. It is time for us to begin to read what other people have written about us. And certainly we need to begin to hear and to reflect on what we have done for humanity. I'm reading what this very intelligent researcher, he's a white man, Englishman, Graham Hancock. He has done tremendous research in Kemet, Egypt, which you call Egypt, which we categorically call Kemet. Egypt doesn't belong to us, it belongs to the Greek, the Caucasian. That's not us. We call Kemet. Mr. Graham Hancock's book, The Sign and the Seal, and under the section called The Civilizers, and I'm reading on page 316 and 317. I definitely would encourage you to buy Mr. Hancock's books. He is a very thorough researcher. The Sign and the Seal is a very good book, so please get it. And don't tell Mr. Hancock that I'm promoting his book either, but I'm sure you want to get a book and read many things that he has said in the book. Now, I certainly don't agree with him on many other issues in the book, but I chose this particular area because it's very significant to who we are, how far we have come, and how displaced we are, and how disgraced we are. And certainly you look at Somalia, at Sudan, Kenya, and then you go to the rest of Africa, you begin to ask, where did these people come from? Who are Africans anyway? See how nasty they look. Well, now let me read. Mr. Hancock, Graham Hancock starts. He says, it seemed, now I'm quoting from the book. It seemed that the civilization of Egypt, he calls Kemet Egypt, so I will say what he wrote. It seemed that the civilization of Egypt had emerged all at once and fully formed. Let me read that again. It seemed that the civilization of Egypt had emerged all at once and fully formed. Indeed, the period of transition from primitive to advanced society had been so short that it made no kind of historical sense. This is a white man writing now. This is not written by Dr. Jack Hunter Diop. This is written by a Caucasian. And this man was honest enough to give you the facts. He says, indeed, the period of transition from primitive to advanced society had been so short that it made no kind of historical sense. Technological skills that should have taken hundreds or even thousands of years to evolve had appeared almost literally overnight, and apparently with no antecedents whatsoever. Let me read that again. Technological skills that should have been that should have taken hundreds or even thousands of years to evolve had appeared almost literally overnight and apparently with no antecedents whatsoever. You are hearing a white man write. I didn't write it. As I said, Dr. Chuck, Anthony Chuck didn't write it either. Mr. Hancock continues. He gives an example. For example, remains from pre-dynastic period dated to 3600 BC show no trace of writing. Then quite suddenly and inexplicably, the hieroglyphs familiar from so many of the ruins of ancient Egypt began to appear and to do so furthermore in a complete and perfect state. Let me read that part again. For example, remains from pre-dynastic period dated to 3600 BC showed no trace of writing. Then quite suddenly and inexplicably, the hieroglyphs familiar from so many of the ruins of ancient Egypt began to appear and to do so furthermore in a complete and perfect state. Far from being mere pictures of objects and actions, this written language was complex and structured with signs that represented sounds only and with a detailed system of numerical symbols. It was also clear that advanced cursive script had come into common usage by the dawn of the first dynasty. We are still talking about Kemet here. We are not talking about the Greeks. We are not talking about the Romans. We are not talking about the Chinese. We are not talking about the Indians over there in India. We are talking about Africa here. We are not talking about Mesopotamia. This man is giving us information here about Africa and about writing. Let me continue. Mr. Hancock continues as he quotes the late Professor Walter Emery of the University of London. This is what Mr. Hancock said about Professor Walter Emery. Professor Emery writes, at a period approximately 3,400 years before Christ. Listen. At a period approximately 3,400 years before Christ. Christ is the reference point here. This Dr. Walter Emery is giving here. This is a white man, Dr. Walter Emery of the University of London. At a period approximately 3,400 years before Christ, a great change took place in Egypt, and the country passed rapidly from a state of Neolithic culture with a complex tribal character to one of well-organized monarchy. You heard this professor here. At the same time, the art of writing appears. Monumental architecture and the arts and crafts developed to an astonishing degree, and all the evidence points to the existence of a luxurious civilization. You are hearing this man, this Professor Walter Emery. This is what this professor is saying here. All this was achieved within a comparatively short period of time, for there appears to be little or no background to these fundamental developments in writing and architecture. Let me read that part again by what Professor Walter Emery. At a period approximately 3,400 years before Christ, a great change took place in Egypt, and the country passed rapidly from a state of Neolithic culture with a complex tribal character to one of well-organized monarchy. At the same time, the art of writing appears, monumental architecture and the arts and crafts developed to an astonishing degree, and all the evidence points to the existence of a luxurious civilization. All this was achieved within a comparatively short period of time, but there appears to be little or no background to build fundamental developments in writing and architecture. End of quote. Now let me read what Mr. Graham Hancock stated about the building of the obelisk. Now this is what Mr. Hancock also stated about that. Now this is not a quote from Dr. Emery. Mr. Hancock goes on to say, equally puzzling was how once the monoliths reached Karnak was the manner in which they were set upright on their pedestals with such faultless accuracy. Now, Mr. Hancock is writing, let me read that again. He is now writing about the monoliths, the obelisks, and so forth. He says, equally puzzling, once the monoliths reached Karnak, Karnak is the Valley of the Kings, was the manner in which they were set upright on their pedestals with such faultless accuracy. In one of the temples, a relief depicted a pharaoh raising an obelisk with no assistance of any kind and making use of just a single piece of rope. According to John Anthony West, an experienced Egyptologist, the pharaohs and priests were preoccupied with a principle known as ma'at, often translated as equilibrium or balance. Such techniques would have enabled them to manipulate these immense stones with ease and finesse. Now listen to the conclusion. What would be magic to us? This is what Mr. Hancock is saying. What would be magic to us, Europeans, Arabs, Chinese, Indians? What would be magic to us was method to them Africans. I will say that again. What would be magic to us, those of us who look at us today as we are superior to the Africans, was method to the Africans. Africa, Africa, AfRAka, 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 Africa. You were civilized before Jesus Christ, 3,400 years before Jesus Christ. Africa, Africa, Africa. Wake up from your sleep. Africa, Africa, Africa. You've been sleeping for too long. Africa, Africa, Africa. Professor Momo is here to wake you up. Oh Africa, oh Africa. You are sitting on top of an immense amount of wealth. Wake up, my people. The whole world is waiting for you. The European is waiting for you to civilize him again. The European is waiting for you to civilize him again. But you are dragging your feet, my people. I'm Professor Momo. Africa, you will wake up. Whether you like it or not. Because the mighty IMHOTEP is said. It is in the Tehuti text. Mighty IMHOTEP had a dream. He says, I see my people in pain. It's in the Tehuti text. I see my people in pain and I cry for them. He says, but in the midst of that pain, there will be a song that will wake up and pull them out of their pain one by one. That song is me. I'm no prophet, but I am who the mighty IMHOTEP was talking about. IMHOTEP was a Dogon. I'm a Dogon. I'm Professor Momo, Dogon University of Thought. Naman.